has been quite the week.
I also got the new Beetlejuice palette.
She's short and sweet. Spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners, spooky Sunday dinners. They still can't afford a theme song. Hi, for those of you that don't know, my name is Johnny Taylor and this is Spooky Sunday Dinners, where every Sunday, every other Sunday, when I'm late Monday, let me get control of my life and then the Thursday will happen. We talk about a true crime case that I just really wanna fucking talk about while we make a fairly easy recipe. So if true crime, cooking, and dark humor is your thing, you might wanna hit that subscribe button below. We're back. It's been a week. An amazing week. Yeah, if any of you follow me on social media, which none of you do, I checked. You know that this week, we accidentally adopted a reindeer. Hopefully I learned how to put a photo in right there, because if not, I'm gonna look like an idiot. But with having a growing reindeer in the apartment, it's really hard to focus on anything but him. So this week, we're gonna have a super short and sweet true crime case and a super short and easy recipe. Because reindeers chew things, and I have like 30 minutes to do this. So we should probably jump into it. You know what that means. It's Karen disclaimer time. Hi Karen, I'm tired. Shut up. Karen disclaimer number 1. These are not professional recipes. I don't have the nutritional facts and they're not really for nutritional value. It's just what I feel like cooking that day. So if you make this and you don't like it, or you fuck up and get sick, it's not my problem, Karen. I'm tired. Shut up. Again, these are not professional recipes. I am barely scraping mediocre in life in general. Karen disclaimer number 2. This is Spooky Sunday Dinners. Emphasis on spooky. We talk about true crime, murder, disease, and all fucked up shit, while we sprinkle a nice little dash of comedy on top, because that's how I cope with being obsessed with something so fucking dark. If that offends you in any way, shape, or form, make sure you want to pick up a phone to call, text, DM, or email me. Don't. I won't read it. I'm tired, Karen. Shut up. I have never done that on the first try. Alright, so a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Beaver family murders, and that opened up a door to one of my favorite genres of true crime. Children who kill. I feel like I'm really jinxing myself at this point, and I should never have children, because they will kill. That's why this week, we will be talking about the one and only, the heavy hitter, the HBIC, Mary Bell. Yeah, if you know, you know. Yikes. And while we talk about Mary Bell, we are going to be making some pull-apart pesto chicken sliders. This is a super easy, quick recipe when you have to whip shit up to get back to your reindeer. As always, I'm going to go over the ingredients that we're going to be using, and it will be listed in the description below. This is just so you don't get mad at me. I have 1 boiled and shredded boneless, skinless chicken breast. As usual, I boiled this in salt, pepper, and garlic. If you don't know how to boil a chicken breast, are you okay? I mean, I have a video on it if you need help. It's the first one I ever did. Some pesto sauce of choice. This is my homemade pesto sauce. I will link the video down below where I make this. Watch it. Learn something. King's Hawaiian rolls. I'm going to use 6 of them in a baking dish. Use more if you want more. Less if you want less. Both mozzarella, did I say that right again? And shredded Parmesan cheese. A little bit of mayo, but this step is optional. I'm gonna be going in with the Best Foods vegan dressing and spread. I actually like this better than regular mayo, so try it. And finally, I have prepped about 2.5 tablespoons of melted butter and seasoned it with basil and garlic. I'm gonna prep my oven at 400 degrees, and while that's heating up, who the fuck is Mary Bell? So Mary Bell was born May 26, 1957 in Newcastle, England. Her mother, Betty McCricket, was a known sex worker and all-around terrible person, but not because she was a sex worker. Don't get it twisted. Betty was 17 years old when she gave birth to Mary and actually didn't know who her father was. At one point, Mary Bell believed that her father was a known criminal, Billy Bell. But it turns out Betty just married Billy while Mary was a baby. That was extremely hard to say. So Betty would often leave Mary with family, friends, or basically anybody she could so she could travel to Glasgow because it was better for her sex work industry. She was an absolutely terrible mother who actually tried to give Mary away to a random woman outside of an abortion clinic. Clearly that didn't work. Within Mary's first few years of life, Betty tried to kill her multiple times. She kept saying that Mary was having these accidents, like falling out of a window or accidentally taking a bunch of sleeping pills. Say it with me. Sus AF. But yeah, Betty was on some sus shit, and it turned out that there was a woman in public that actually saw Betty feeding Mary what she believed were sleeping pills and calling them sweets. Because of all this, it is believed that Mary had some damage to her prefrontal cortex from a young age. It is also believed that Betty was suffering from Munchausen's by proxy. Look that one up. Insane. Of course, in school, Mary was known as a problem child. She was a chronic liar, she was disruptive, and she would often talk about wanting to hurt other people and kids at school. She was a hitter and believed to be a biter as well. Because of all this, she was severely bullied because she was always the kid that was getting in trouble. Because you know, kids suck. A lot of people's questions were, why specifically was she so badly behaved? Well, most think it was a cry for help, because we later find out that as early as the age of 4, Betty was actually selling her daughter into prostitution. She had to do horrible sexual things with grown men, and her mother would make a ton of money from it. So fuck you, Betty. And fuck you, all those men. On May 25th, 1968, 2 boys were playing in an abandoned house. They end up finding the strangled body of Martin Brown, age 4. Mary and her friend Norma were absolutely obsessed with looking at this dead body. They met these boys at the house, and it turned out that when police got there, they actually had to order the girls out of the house and away from the body. The next day, Mary was actually caught trying to choke Norma and strangle her. She was caught by Norma's father and ended up being sent home. Sus shit. And later that day, a preschool ended up being vandalized. All over the school, there was graffiti and like notes left that took responsibility for that death of Martin. What's interesting enough though is that the vandals were clearly children. Some of the notes at the end of them said fuck off, but it was actually spelled F-U-C-H-O-F. But also like timeline, when I was 10 or 11, I knew how to spell fuck. So I don't know what's going on there. But when the cops found it, they thought it was just some kids being dumb and totally dismissed it. 4 days later, Mary actually goes to Martin Brown's house and asks his mom if she can see him. When the mom is very kind and says, "Sweetie, Martin's not alive anymore, you know that." Mary looks at this woman, fucking straight-faced as shit, right in the eye and says, "I know. I want to see his body in his coffin." Don't have kids. Get a reindeer. Is it bad to say I would have drop kicked her off my front steps? Because I would have drop kicked her off my front steps. About 2 months later, a 3-year-old by the name of Brian Howe goes missing. As soon as the report goes out, Mary actually goes to Brian's older sister and says that Brian was probably over playing in this like concrete rubble and blocks in this vacant lot nearby. Sus shit. And guess what? The police find the body of Brian strangled with his legs, stomach, and pee-pee mutilated with a razor and some scissors. The scissors were at the scene, and the letters M and N were carved into this little boy's stomach. The only kids around they could think of were Mary and Nora. And somebody in the area did report that they saw some kids playing with Brian earlier that day in the area. The coroner did confirm that Brian had been strangled for sure by a child based on like the size of the handprints and the pressure that was applied to him. So the cops go around and they start talking to kids. And Mary and Nora's stories don't add up at all. They continuously change them, and they can see that they're getting super fucking nervous. Mary, on the fly, comes up with a story all of a sudden that she saw Brian playing with an 8-year-old boy that she knew. She also said that this boy had the scissors that killed Brian and that they were broken. This is when the police were like, we didn't tell you about any scissors, Mary. It was too late, and Mary had already described exactly which side of the scissors was broken and how the little boy was able to use them. Imagine being that cop. Again, just drop kicker. This is when, at Brian's funeral, there is a detective there, obviously just investigating kind of what's going on and who shows up. They end up bringing Brian out of the house in his coffin, and the detective spots Mary kind of like far away from the home, hidden, laughing and rubbing her hands together. What the fuck, Mary? At least like try to hide it. All right, guys, our oven has heated up to 400 degrees. What we're gonna do is take 6 of those Hawaiian rolls and keep them together. We're gonna cut them in half with a bread knife and put the bottom half in our greased baking dish. Once our rolls are in the bottom of our baking dish, we're gonna go in with a very, very light layer of that melted butter and then a very light layer of that mayo or mayo substitute. At this time, when the detective sees Mary outside of Brian's funeral, he goes ahead and puts together, it like dawns on him like a fucking light bulb in his head, that both the murders of Martin Brown and Brian Howe were done by Mary and probably Nora because of the M and N and the fact that they couldn't get them out of that first house. Just imagine being this officer. All right, we have those first layers of butter and mayo done on our rolls. Now we're gonna go in with a layer of chicken, followed by a layer of pesto sauce, followed by a layer of mozzarella cheese. Now, when they bring Mary in for questioning and honestly like to arrest her because they pretty much figured it out and she implicated herself with those scissors, because Mary grew up with career criminals as a mother and stepfather, when they told her, "You're getting charged with murder, Mary," she just looked at them and was like, "Well, that's fine by me." Like a fucking psycho. She totally understands that she has to go to jail and is like kind of okay with it. I don't know. But while she was in jail, there's actually a story of a guard seeing her trying to strangle a cat. And when they stop her and say like, "Mary, don't do that," she goes ahead and tells the guard, "Oh, he can't feel it. I like hurting little things that can't fight back." Mary went on in jail to also say some really weird things, like when she grew up, she really wanted to be a nurse so she could stick people with needles and push things like that into them. Absolutely not. Mary also had a really bad problem with bedwetting, and this was because she was sexually assaulted from such a young age. But while in like jail, prison situation where they held her, she was afraid to go to sleep at night because she didn't want to wet the bed. Because when she wet the bed at home with her mom would rub her face in it like a dog. At this point, I'd like to remind you all that Mary is 11 years old. I put a nice thick layer of that mozzarella cheese on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put our other rolls right on top of that. From here, super simple, I'm just gonna do a light brushing on top of our melted butter, basil, and garlic little mixture. And for a little added fun, I'm just gonna sprinkle a tiny bit of that shredded Parmesan on top. We're gonna throw some foil on top of these and bake them in that 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes. Keep reindeer away from your oven at all times, everybody. Instructional video on having a reindeer. So obviously those two girls end up going to trial, and Norma, did I say Nora earlier? It's Norma. Anyway, Norma ends up being acquitted, and Mary was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. And this is like a kid with a really good home life, a bunch of siblings and her parents still together, versus a child from a broken home, sex worker mom who was actually like making a scene at the trial, like wearing a wig, ripping her wig off, running out. And it just kind of showed the 2 different home dynamics. And so of course, Norma's acquitted, Mary is charged with everything. Which kid are they gonna believe? But because of her age and like the time, there was no place to put Mary. Where were you gonna put her? In a fucking prison? 11 years old learning cell block tango? She doesn't have the range. She can't learn all of that choreography. She's 11. Also, that's what I think prison is like. Cell block tango all the time.
That's facts.
I like your outfit today. Please comment below if you think Doug should give me that sweater. Comment. Please comment. But basically, there's no place to put this kid. So they go and they make like her own wing area of like a boys' juvie school thing. And the guards actually kind of really liked her. Like she was super smart. She just, you know, killed 2 kids. And I think that this whole story is a perfect example of like nature versus nurture versus drop kick your kid versus just send them back. And I think that a lot of what Mary was doing to these kids was trying to like take the power back in a way because of what's happened to her. I think that these are the things she wishes she could do to her mother and those men from the time she was 4 years old. It's kind of like put yourself in that child's shoes. I probably would have been putting my hands around kids' necks too. Don't forget to have a snack. All right guys, those sliders are just about done with their first 10 minutes. From here, we're gonna open up the oven, drop the temp to about 350 to 375, pull the foil off, and let them finish baking for that last 10 minutes uncovered. Amazon storefront. I have a reindeer to feed now. So while Mary Bell was in this facility, she did have some issues and ended up actually escaping with 2 young boys. They were gone for about 2 weeks and obviously ended up getting caught. After she was caught, she was ended up transferred to like a regular adult jail because she was an adult now. When she was in her 20s, she ended up being released from jail, and England like totally freaked out about it. She sold her story to a book, and her mom ended up selling her story to like a bunch of tabloids. But it really sucked because from the time she was 11 years old, she was like the face of evil in England, and everybody just hated her. But nobody gave a fuck about what she went through as a child. Say it with me. Fuck the system. Even there too. She actually was allowed to change her name and live under a different name. And her new name and identity, as well as her daughter and granddaughters, is protected by law. Don't try to look her up. Seriously. But it is said that because she was able to change her name and her identity, that she no longer is like being targeted by people that are just coming up on the street and telling her she's, you know, the spawn of Satan. So now they do it to me. So basically, all of that, a child forced into sex work, killed 2 kids with another little girl, and everyone ended up eventually trying to live a normal life. Mary Bell's mom never got in trouble for what she did to Mary and just kind of got away with it all. Again, fuck off, Betty. But I really want to know what you guys think about this case. Is it the whole like nature versus nurture? Like, would Mary have still been a violent child had her mother not done all of those things? I mean, I think it's safe to say that we can blame Betty for all of this. You don't have much of a chance when your mom tries to OD you multiple times, throws you out of a window, then pushes you into sex work, all before your 5th birthday. The other really crazy thing about this case is when I first learned about it and first read about it, listened to podcasts, and there's actually a made-for-TV movie about it, I thought that this happened like way back in the day, not in the fucking 60s. It's crazy to think that in the late 50s and 60s, there was a 4-year-old being sold into sex work. People knew about it and nothing was being done about it. All right, guys, it's been that last 10 minutes. We're gonna go ahead, pull our sliders out of the oven, plate them, and let's wrap this shit up. Now, I really wanna know what you guys think about this one because this is one of my all-time favorite true crime cases, and I think I just thought it was a lot older than it really was. I mean, imagine going to prison or like jail at 11 years old. I don't know, I think I want to find Betty and have a little talk. All right guys, here are our finished pull-apart pesto chicken sliders. This is a super easy meal I would highly recommend just throwing together and throwing it in the oven. They come out almost perfect every single time. And clearly I can't eat this, but you know, it's just another dinner for Doug. Thank you guys so much for cooking with me today, and thank you for letting me tell you this insane story. Be sure to comment below future crimes you want me to cover and recipes you want me to try. And I really hope you make these. They're actually really good and really easy. I'm proud of this one. Thank you for watching Spooky Sunday Dinners. I am still singing. Still can't afford a theme song. By the way, before you ask, his name is Sven. Let's go see if he hasn't chewed through his crate. Honestly though, not sponsored, would highly recommend this palette.